All right, back to it now. Chinese espionage. Look, we've talked about it a lot here recently because of what happened with the University of Michigan students getting caught bringing agricultural products, fungus into this country. Potentially agro-terrorism, right? And we've been looking at that. Of course, they're willing to steal our intellectual property and targeting U.S. citizens as well. Plus, they have a lot of Chinese nationals living right here in the United States, and 30,000 came across Joe Biden's open border. So you got that going on. Joining me now is Nicholas Eftimiades, a national security expert and author, a former U.S. intelligence official, Penn State Homeland Security professor, and one of the country's leading experts on Chinese espionage and national security. Nicholas, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Really appreciate it. Let me talk just for a minute about this event here at the University of Michigan. Two events, actually. One with a group of 5 Chinese students going up and taking photographs of military exercises when the Taiwanese military was at Camp Grayling, the largest training camp in America. Happens to be in northern Michigan. This happened a few months ago. They claimed to be journalists. They weren't. They were all arrested. You've got 3 more coming into the United States. University of Michigan students bringing agricultural pathogens that could damage the corn, wheat, the beans, the rice, could really damage American agriculture. How concerning is that when you hear headlines like that?
Well, of course, it's very concerning. And in fact, those are only 2 cases out of 7 that happened at the University of Michigan. So there were several others as well that didn't make as much press. So yeah, what it shows us is that China uses what we call a whole of society approach to conduct espionage, which is a lot different from the way the West sees it. You know, the West, they're targeting foreign intelligence firms, foreign militaries. Not so in China. They attack and they look at all of society for their collection efforts, and they use all of society, which means students, businesses, state-owned enterprises. So it's what we call collectively a whole of society approach, much more difficult to counter.
So what it is I don't know the term exactly in Mandarin. I don't speak Mandarin, Nicholas, I'm going to tell you that, but it's everything under heaven belongs to China. That's what they believe. We hear about Taiwan being a rogue province. They believe America is a rogue province. We've talked about on this program extensively. But you've written extensively about the growing espionage threat to the United States. You had all these people come over the open border. What are your biggest concerns when you look at Chinese aggression? I mean, they're running an asymmetrical war against America right now. We may not realize we're at war, but they realize it, and they play cards on that front every day, don't they?
They do, and they call that unrestricted warfare, which for them includes everything from drug warfare, counterfeit warfare. I mean, you know, the amount of counterfeits that they ship into the country to the United States that impact our economy are 87% of them globally come from China. And that is almost 3 times as much as the global drug trade. So every aspect to take advantage of in our economy, in our society, our political influence, they do. It's their construct of unrestricted warfare. You know, I examined for this book 865 cases of covert influence, espionage, economic espionage, and theft of technology. And they are absolutely rampant. And the problem, my biggest concern, the things that keep me up at night, is that we're not structured to handle this. You know, the FBI does 2 cases a day on China. They get 1 every 12 hours. That's 730 cases a year. And each one takes months to resolve, spread over 56 field offices. There are thousands of cases in the rear. And that's just the FBI. We are currently incapable of handling this type of unrestricted warfare, and in particular, the espionage.
What would make us capable of handling it? That would be my answer. What would make us capable?
I can tell you, we need 2 things. A, we need a national strategy on how to contend with this. We need something that's going to live past the Trump administration, because China is very patient and they'll just wait things out. And then 2, we need effective deterrence. It doesn't do any good when you have 15,000 critical infrastructure operations in the United States penetrated, and our response is, well, let's build more security. Let's build more cybersecurity. That's just cost. It's cost added into the American consumer. And if it's a government, it's cost added onto the taxpayer. You need to make China feel pain for doing that. You need to kick a state-owned enterprise off the stock exchange. You need to make it clear to them these types of acts won't be tolerated, and it will result in consequences. Because right now it doesn't result in consequences, and that's the problem.
Let me ask you this, because this has been top of the page here for a bit, especially yesterday, the EU deal with the United States that Donald Trump got on the trade deal. Now with the biggest deal ever, $1.35 trillion of investment from the EU into the United States, 0% tariffs, our stuff going that way, 15% across the board coming this way. I think this puts the pressure on China. They're the last ones to the table, and these deals have been reached with the UK, with Vietnam, with Japan, now the EU. These are all big deals. What kind of pressure does that put on Beijing? What kind of pressure does that put on Xi Jinping?
Well, it certainly puts pressure on both. It puts pressure on the country and him politically. And as we've heard for many, many months now, he is not as stable politically as he was.
No. And in fact, some would say that some believe that he might have had a stroke a year ago, right? Some people believe he's had some diminishment in his capacity, that the generals are circling. And because he shuffled the deck, there is no clear successor now. So there could be a power struggle in China, couldn't there?
That could very well be. And the more frightening part is we actually really don't know because the system is so opaque over there. So it's usually you kind of live a bit off rumors and see what happens. But China's got a lot of issues that they're going to have to resolve. But the point I'll take is that they are patient. So if they can, they might be calculating they can wait out Trump for another 3.5 years, less than that as he heads towards his last few months in office. And then just move ahead before, depending on what administration comes in. They have a very long-term planning cycle. 3.5 years is nothing for a society that's lived for 5,000.
Yeah, big changes could happen in Beijing, that's for sure. And obviously, he eliminated all his competition over the last few years, did Xi Jinping, before he started to lose his grip on power. He eliminated all the obvious successors. He did it quite publicly, oftentimes, to make clear that he was the big dog, right? He made clear for everybody around him to see he was in charge. Nobody's going to challenge that authority. But now, if he did have a medical issue or if he has some issues with power, man, it just makes things uncertain. Do you think we'll get a deal with China in the near term? And if so, will it be a good one? I'll give you the last word, sir.
I think we will get a deal with China in the near future. I think China will live it out for 3.5 years. And if we don't get a administration in that's as good as this current one, then they'll just start to ignore it after Trump is out of office.
Professor, I greatly appreciate you being here. By the way, he wrote the book, Chinese Espionage Operations and Tactics. If you want to learn a little bit more about how they play ball, Chinese Espionage Operations and Tactics, you can find out more. Professor Nicholas Eftimiades, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. And, I nailed it. Greatly appreciate you spending time here. Around the corner, speaking of money and everything going on, it seems that the stock market, they seem to like these trade deals a lot. Nick Hopwood is coming up, and we'll see what happens with his predictions for the markets, for your money. Always get a second opinion. We'll have that with Nick after the break.